In this video, we're going to take a look at Frank Krueger's new IDE for the Apple iPad that allows you to use your iPad to actually write C# and F# code to write Xamarin mobile applications for iOS using both Forms as well as what's kind of called Xamarin Classic. So after downloading Continuous from the Apple App Store and launching it, you get a very straightforward experience. And a lot of your navigation happens with the panel here on the left where you have Projects, Console, and a Watch tab. Console basically acts as your output for your compiler, lets you know if everything is compiling correctly. And then the Watch kind of acts as a real-time feedback system, or what some people call a REPL, that will allow us to see our changes in our code in real time. But before we get into projects and actually writing code stuff, let's also take a quick look at some of the other IDE features. If we take a look in settings, we'll see that we can go between dark mode and light mode, and that we can increase or lower our font size depending on how old we are or how bad our eyesight is. And we can also do kind of more traditional IDE things where we can specify whether or not we want to use tabs like sophisticated people, or if we want to use spaces like cavemen. I will probably edit that out because I don't want to flame war. So anyways, we can also specify whether or not we want Continuous to be constantly recompiling our code as we make changes. So I'm going to hit done. We can also create new files as well as solutions. I created an example solution that I'll be referencing here, but you can see it's kind of like your standard wizard where I can specify whether or not I want to make a library, which can be portable library, an iOS library. I can create a file. I can create like a UI view controller, UI view class, or whatnot. And then we also have support for F# as well as C# here. So let's kind of take a look at some of the files that Frank has already provided to us. If I open up Tip Calculator here and go to the Watch tab, we'll see that it automatically loads up our code here on the right. And you'll see our code is pretty much creating a label, an entry, and some more labels. And so what's really cool and neat about this is I can come in here, and by the way, I highly suggest hooking up a Bluetooth keyboard to your iPad. It makes typing, as you can imagine, way easier and gives you way more screen real estate to see what's going on. So here I can immediately change my top padding and see the change here on the left. I can also, do things like change the font size, color, things of that nature. So let's go back to 40 so it fits all nice and neat. And one of the things you might notice if you're paying attention is this is compatible with Xamarin Forms. And so after creating the labels and entries, we can see here that we're creating our stack layouts, adding them to our main content page. And so let's say you kind of get this UI the way you want it. How can you get it to your laptop? Because your laptop is going to be what's responsible for creating your IPA or your actual binary and whatnot. So one of the things you can do is if you go back to your project and you select the little info icon here to the right, you can specify share file, and it'll load up your traditional iOS share intent of sorts. I can also try this. Share code opens up a very similar thing as well. So I can maybe copy and paste it or add it to notes or an email and whatnot. So what about a more traditional Xamarin iOS application? So let's open up this solution that I created earlier. And one of the things that kind of took me a couple of seconds to figure out how to do is I got this UI view controller, but how do I see it in my Watch tab, right? Like right now we'll see that the expand button is disabled and I'm not necessarily seeing my UI. What you have to do is you tap the definition of your class, and then if you invoke your constructor, you'll see your UI view controller here on the left. And I have the same ability to change things in real time and see what happens, like so. And here again, I can share my code in the exact same way. So as you can see, Frank Krueger has really created a very interesting and innovative IDE that will hopefully make iPad less of a media consumption device for developers and actually make it a useful tool for their mobile development experiences.